Parenting is never easy, but add in your child having a chronic illness or special need, and the challenge is multiplied. The oxygen mask effect is here to help parents learn to put their oxygen masks on first so that they can become healthier, which will allow them to become stronger caregivers and more effective advocates for their children. Welcome to today's episode of The Oxygen Mask Effect. As everybody knows, I've shifted things a little bit, and we're working and speaking with people who are either parents of children with chronic illness or lifelong conditions, or who have grown up with them themselves. And many of my guests are entrepreneurs. And so it's also not only living with the conditions, but growing a business with it as well. My guest today is actually a friend of mine. He is Paul Forchione. Paul was actually born with cerebral palsy. And when he was young, it was so severe that the doctors told his parents he would never be able to walk. Thank goodness she didn't listen to the doctors, because with her mindset and her encouragement, that is not Paul's story. Today, he was able to overcome it, live a full active life, and today, he's actually a mindset coach. So what he does is he shares his story with his clients to help them rewrite their own stories to go after their dreams and desires. Basically, he tells them his story to show it wasn't easy to get to where he is today. But he's living a full life. He has his own business. And that's what we're going to hear from Paul. So thank you for being my guest today. I am excited to have you on.
Thank you, Allison. I was looking forward to it. Like you said, we're friends, so it's kind of nice to be in this podcast with a friend.
Definitely makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, at this stage of the game, you're a mindset coach working with your clients on rewriting their stories. Can you give a little bit more of the background? I just did a very brief summary, but tell our listeners a little bit more of how you started and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. So if your viewers don't know about cerebral palsy, it's actually lack of oxygen to the brain at birth. And as a result of this lack of oxygen to the brain at birth, it can leave one side of the body paralyzed. It can affect your speech. And these things are permanent. These do not go away. You have this for life. So when I was born, I wasn't moving the right side of my body very much. And naturally, my mother was very concerned about that. So she took me to the doctors to get some testing done. And it did indeed come back that I did suffer from cerebral palsy. And this doctor thought it was so severe that it would be a good idea to get me in a wheelchair when I got to a certain age, because that was going to be my life going forward. And I've had a conversation with my mother about this several times. But basically what she told me was, obviously, when she heard that news, she was devastated.
Of course.
She cried herself to sleep, and it was just an awful thing. She woke up the next morning and got me ready for the day. And I must have given her a look, if to say, Mom, don't let this be my story. And that mother bear started raging inside of her, and it became her mission to make sure that her baby boy walks. So she got a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion, a fifth opinion, finally found a physician willing to help. And with this physician's help and me doing physical therapy 5 to 6 times a week and my mom's unrelentless attitude, I was able to walk at age 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, I really don't remember that much, but obviously that was a huge feat. But I do remember being put into soccer roughly when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And at the time, I probably could run 25 to 50 yards before my leg would give out and I couldn't run anymore. I'm basically standing there on the soccer field where kids are playing soccer around me. And I'll never forget what my mom said to me, because I hear it today, her words that she said to me that day. I said to her, I go, Mom, I don't want to play soccer anymore. This is ridiculous. I'm basically staying there. Kids are teasing me. It's just not for me. And my mom said, Paul, if you don't want to play soccer anymore, that is fine. But you need to honor your commitments. So you need to finish out that soccer season. And after that, if you don't want to play soccer anymore, that's your prerogative. That's fine. And I'm 41 years old and I haven't played soccer since, but I did finish out the soccer season. But I got a huge break, roughly right after the soccer season. I got surgery on my right foot to tighten up the tendons to give me a little bit more spring in my step. And I didn't know how big of a game changer it was, but I switched schools around this time, about first grade. I remember my first day of PE, physical education. We did our stretches, and the teacher says, okay, guys, run a lap. And I'm like, here we go again. I'm going to run 25 to 50 yards. I'm going to have to stop. These kids are going to have to see that, and they're going to start to tease me. But because of the surgery was different, I was able to go past that point where I normally have to stop. And I remember saying to myself, come on, Paul, you got this, buddy. Let's go. Let's go. And I finished the lap with the other kids. On the outside, I kept it cool, but on the inside, I was like, yes, yes, yes. It was the first time in my young life that I just fit in. I didn't stand out. It was a huge, huge, huge feat. And because of the surgery, things did get easier for me, but I wouldn't consider them easy. My parents unfortunately got divorced when I was 12 or 13 years old. So I had to switch schools. And that's a tough age to switch schools with no disability. You know, kids are going through hormonal changes. They're becoming teenagers. And a lot of them have been going to school for years and years together. So they already formed their cliques, and it's hard to just break in. So just being a new kid with no disability, it's tough. Well, I'm a new kid. I walk with a limp and I hold my right arm differently. So it was even tougher for me. I had a really hard time breaking in, making friends in the school. I was bullied and teased pretty much every single day during this time in my life. And on top of that, I was raised Catholic. So my mom wanted me to go to Catholic high school when I got to that age. So I had to take an assessment test to see where they were going to place me when I got to high school. Well, I must have bombed the test, because when I met with the principal and with my mom, the principal tells the both of us that they're going to put me at the lowest level possible, and they don't expect much from me. I don't seem like I'm college material. After one test, this principal says this to us.
After an admission test before you are even in freshman year of high school.
That is correct. That is correct.
You're not college material.
I'm not college material because I scored so poorly on this one test. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So now I think I'm getting bullied and teased in school. Now I think I'm stupid. So I'm crying myself to sleep most nights going, why me? Why do I have to go through this? Why can't I just fit in like the other kids? Allison, I don't know what came over me, but midway through my 8th grade or beginning of my 8th grade, I was sick and tired of feeling angry and sad all the time. I knew deep down those weren't my go-to emotions, but because of the environment I was in, those were the emotions that were coming up most of the time. So I thought, what could I do to distract me from those feelings? And I thought, what if I set a goal for myself and I could focus in on the goal and kind of ignore that noise outside of it? And I thought, what could it be? And at the time, I loved baseball. So I made a goal for myself to try to make my varsity baseball team in high school. So I enrolled in fall ball, winter ball, spring ball. And if I wasn't doing that, I was throwing a tennis ball against the wall. And there was a coach that was seeing me play all these seasons, and finally came up to me and goes, you know, it's awesome that you play a lot of baseball, Paul. What do you want to do with this? And I was so embarrassed. I did not want to tell him that I wanted to make my varsity baseball team because I didn't want him to laugh at me. But he finally got it out of me. And I told him that I wanted to make my varsity baseball team. And he paused for a second and he said, that's doable. I'm like, what? That's doable? He goes, yeah, it is doable. He goes, but you got to have people keep you accountable. And I go, what do you mean by that? He goes, after practice tomorrow, I want you to go in front of the team and tell the team that that's your goal. And I'm like, no. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. They're going to make fun of me. He goes, you got to do it. People got to know your goals so they can keep you accountable. So after practice, I did it. I was stuttering. I was nervous. And I told the kids this, and they started to clap for me. And I started to cry. I was so relieved that they didn't tease me. And I know this now. I didn't know this, during when I was doing this. I was changing the energy I was sending out to kids. I started to gain more confidence in myself. I had my shoulders back, my head up. And as a result of this, the kids started to send me a different energy back towards me. In other words, instead of bullying and teasing me, they started rooting for me. So my high school career was much, much different than my middle school career, all because of how I carried myself. And that alone is a win. That's the win. the cherry on top of the whole thing was I was able to make my varsity baseball team as a junior and a senior. And my senior year, I pitched a 3-hit shutout. They poured the Gatorade on me, and I
Oh,
felt so alive.
wow.
I felt so good about myself. It was great.
That's
Now I
incredible.
graduate high school, and I really start to think about what that principal said to me years earlier about not being college material, because all through high school, I pretty much mailed it in because I thought to myself, well, I'm not college material. Why try harder and waste time? Just do enough to stay eligible to play baseball and move on because you're not college material. So my grades weren't that great. But I thought, wow, somebody with cerebral palsy making a varsity baseball team, I thought that was near
That's
impossible.
huge.
Yeah. I thought it wasn't going to happen, but I was able to do it. And I thought, well, why can't I set another goal for myself and say that I am college material? So I enrolled into a junior college because that was the only place that would accept me at the time. I got myself a math tutor. I got myself a regular tutor. I did everything necessary to increase my grade point average. And I took my barely a 2.0 all the way to 3.5, where I was able to transfer to a 4-year university where I was able to graduate.
That's a tongue twister to everybody. So
Yeah. And where I became college material.
that's great. And what did you end up getting your degree in?
Radio, television, film, believe it or not.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to go back to that principal and tell the principal, like, see, you were wrong. I was college material. But in the end, you know what? I probably should thank her because I heard her voice all through college saying that I wasn't college material. And I was going to say to her, no, I am. So she gave me the motivation to really hit the books hard. So in the end, I should probably thank her. So now I'm 22, 23 years old. I have no life experience whatsoever. I have no idea what the heck I want to do with my life. And I had a family friend who was in the mortgage industry. He was the CEO of a small bank. And he said, hey, why not try becoming mortgage loan officer? I'll hire you. And I'm like, I got nothing going on. Let's do it. So he hires me and I get in and no one wants to talk to me. Everybody is shunning me. I haven't felt this way since junior high and middle school. I'm sitting alone at lunch and I quickly realized what the issue was. Everybody knew I knew the CEO of the company. So it wasn't because of my talents, it's because who I knew. So I didn't belong there. So what they were going to do is they were going to chew me up and spit me out because there was no need for me to be there. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to show my worth. So I dug in. I had a great attitude. I didn't complain about the workload. And from afar, because they didn't want to talk to me, I was observing what top loan officers did in the company. And I remember my first day of wanting to go out in the field and get loans for the first time. My family friend stops me and goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to go out in the field. I'm going to get loans. And he's like, no. You're not ready. Let's get you a little more training and we'll get you out there. I'm like, no. I got this. Let's go. I'm ready. And he was right. I went out there and I fell on my face left and right. These clients were abusing me, but months would go by and slowly but surely, I started to realize what value I could add to these clients. And slowly but surely, I started to get loans and more loans and more loans. And 2 years later, I became a top producer in this company. And people who didn't want to talk to me when I first got there are now coming to me with questions on how I was able to turn things around at such a fast clip. And I really, really enjoyed being in the mortgage industry. And I thought this was going to be my career forever. Then 2008, 2009 hit and everything tanked it. I would get a job in the mortgage industry and the coal company would go belly up and I'd have to get another job and that company would go belly up. And this happened 3 or 4 times. So I started to really lose the luster of being in the industry. And I'll remember the last place I was at, they brought this motivational speaker to come talk to the group, to the sales team to motivate us to get our numbers up. And the guy blew me away. The guy was awesome. So after his presentation, I made a point to go talk to him and to tell him how great of a job he did. And he was very, very gracious. He allowed me to pick his brain a little bit. He said he started as a life coach. And I'm like, life coach? What in the heck is that? And he explained that to me. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's what I want to do. So on the side of doing the mortgages, I was starting to get my certificate in coaching. And I started telling people, hey, I think I want to get into coaching. And they're like, humor me. Okay, whatever, coach. Just go out and get loans, buddy. Whatever, you know. Yeah. So things start to get real serious because I got my website up and everything else. And the company I was at the time, the legal team comes to me and goes, what's this website and all this stuff? And I was very transparent. I said, I'm going to do this on the side, coaching this and that. And they're like, this could be a conflict of interest. We're going to have to get back to you. I'm like, uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. They came back to me with this 5-page report of what I couldn't say in the coaching world. And I looked at this going, there's no way I'm going to make any traction in coaching if I follow this to the T.
Right.
So I spent a year paying down all my debts, doing everything necessary to get everything situated. And a year later, I quit. And people are like, what in the heck are you doing? You just made President's Club. Why would you quit? This coaching thing's a pie in the sky nonsense. And I'm like, nah, I want to go for it. And they're like, okay, you'll be back. And for a while, I thought they were going to be right. I thought that I wasn't going to make it because I wasn't getting any traction with any clients. And I realized what the issue was. How do I expect people to be vulnerable with me if I'm not vulnerable with them? See, Allison, the story I told you about having cerebral palsy, I wanted to bury that story. I didn't want to tell anybody that story because all through growing up, all I wanted to do was fit in. I didn't want to stand out. I just wanted to be like everybody else. So just the thought of bringing it up would almost bring me to tears. When somebody said I'm limping, I'd make up some silly excuse. I didn't want to go there. I just didn't want to go there. But I thought there's no way that people are going to trust me and allow me to coach them if I'm not vulnerable with them and they don't know my backstory. So I started telling my story, and it was shaky at first, but I started telling more and more and more people. And I'll never forget, my first client comes to me and goes, Paul, I don't have cerebral palsy, but I have X, Y, and Z. And I think you understand me. And I would love to hire you as a coach. And we've been building momentum from there. And now I'm on a mission to have everybody take back their pen and write the story they want for their lives, not for anybody else, but for themselves.
Your story is so inspirational because there are so many families who don't have that support that you had from your mother early on. There are so many families with similar issues or more severe forms of cerebral palsy or other conditions that the life you developed for yourself, they're not able to. But being able to tell your story and share your story, that is so powerful. And I thank you for sharing it with everybody here today. Now, you mentioned a couple of things, and I just want to bring them up, but I have another question before we get to that point. As you know, oxygen mask effect is taking care of yourself first. Your mother, did she have assistance? Did she have a support system in place? I know you and your parents are divorced, but you were mentioning your mother, but how is your father with all of this?
Yeah, my father, had to do a lot of work, so he worked a lot of hours. But he was definitely a support system. If my mom said, "Hey, let's try this," my dad would never argue and say, "Okay, let's go for it." He was supporting in that sense. I don't know exactly if my mom, hung out with friends or any of that nature. I don't know what she did as far as that. I know that, there was other moms that were kind of going through the same things.
Okay.
So I know that she would meet with them a little bit, but as far as what she did for herself, I'm not sure. And that's a good question. I should ask her.
Being a parent of a child with chronic illness and 2 children with chronic condition, lifelong conditions, I know sometimes you need to have somebody in your place. Now, but for yourself, with everything you've gone through, and it's not always easy, but what do you do for self-care? How do you take care of yourself when you need some downtime?
Well, for me, I do 2 things that I love to do. Actually, 3 things. One is I love to take walks, and I
Mm,
love to put my phone aside. I don't have my phone on me, and I love going to flowers and smelling
mm,
them, taking in the senses, just trying to be present. I think that's the number one thing that I love to do. I do that all the time. And 2, I like to take drives, kind of doing the same thing. Obviously, got to pay more attention to the road and such like
right.
that. But I like to take drives. And thirdly, I love to read. So those are the 3 things that I do for myself on a weekly basis to help me stay on track.
Awesome. Some of the things you brought up were trying to prove people wrong. How, and a lot of people have used that as an influence. And yes, it forced you to get your college degree and, have the 3.5 GPA and all of that. But how else has trying to prove people wrong shifted or transformed you?
Well, I kind of learn now, like through my coaching practice, that um, that shouldn't be a thing anymore for me to try to prove anybody wrong or any of that nature. Now I try to stay where I want to be and be the best person I want to be, and not really worry about what other people think about me. When I was very young when,
Of course.
going to college, and I really didn't have that perspective. So I had that chip on my shoulder, and it did help me. But looking forward in my life now, that's just not the way I like to roll about proving people wrong. If people feel that I can't do anything or anything like that, I just kind of ignore the noise and not worry about it, and kind of take my ego aside and do what I want to do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, with your coaching, what type of excuse me, what type of clients do you actually work with? Is there a specific area? Are you specializing in people with illness, or is there a specific area within mindset coaching that you specialize in?
When I first started, it was people with, with challenges, physical challenges, but it's evolved now with my coaching. Now, matter of fact, I'm working with a young man. He's 14 years old, and he's into golf. I definitely don't help him with the golf, but I help him with the mindset and help him look at perspective. And when he has a bad shot, not to just have him lose it, have perspective. Look where I'm at. Look at where I'm at right now. 2 years ago, I wasn't even at this level. Now I am. So big deal. One bad shot, get it out of my head, and just enjoy the round, enjoy being good at what I do, and the competition just with yourself. Just try to be as good of a golfer that you can be. Don't worry about what Sam over there is doing. Just worry about what you're doing. And if you do that, you can just move up the ranks, because if you do what needs to be done, things are going to work out for you.
That's awesome. And how do you help your clients rewrite their stories?
Well, first things first. Before I have anybody set any type of goals for themselves, any of that nature, whatever they want to do, first things first is what I love about your podcast is self-care. We got to work on our self-esteem first and foremost, because if our self-esteem is not good, when things get tough on your goal, we're just going to give up. Yep. Right? Because exactly. We're like, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. We're playing these silly things in our mind that are not true, but we make them true, because our mind is a powerful thing. So first things first, we work on ourselves. We put our oxygen mask on first before we do anything further. And once we start to feel confidence in ourselves, then we can start to set goals for ourselves, because anytime anybody sets a goal, there's going to be tough times.
Of course.
And it's going to get to you the point where you might want to quit. But if you really feel strong about something and you feel strong about yourself, you're going to do whatever it takes to get over it. But if you don't feel that way and you're not confident in yourself, you're going to give it an excuse. Well, this is just too hard. We're just going to give up. So first things first, we work on improving our self-esteem and improving what we think about ourselves, because we say things to ourselves that we may not even say to our worst enemies, but we say to ourselves on a daily basis. So it's important that we are aware of what we're telling ourselves on a daily basis. Is it positive? Is it negative? If it is negative, which is okay, because we need to be truthful with ourselves, we can start to fix that. But the only way we can do that is being aware of what we think about.
Very true. And with regard to that, what are 3 tips you would give to our listeners in starting to rewrite their stories?
Well, the one thing that I have all my clients do, and I do myself, is when you wake up in the morning, before you do whatever your morning routine is, think about something that you're grateful for. I tell people to write it down. If they don't want to write it down, that's fine, but think about it. Because what happens is you start to prime your brain to start to look at positive things that may happen during your day. You get something on your phone that says free coffee, up, the day keeps getting better and better and better. Because you can go the opposite way, right? You can go in your day with a negative mindset, and you could be
Right.
driving to work and you get a flat tire and you go, just my luck. This would happen to me. And I would say to that individual, yeah, that is your luck because you're seeking it out. How many times do you buy a new car and all of a sudden you see that same car all over the road? You didn't see it before.
Constantly.
Yeah, because your mind's seeking it. It's the same thing with a positive and negative mindset. That is one. And two is, and enjoy the right now.
Ooh,
We're
that's
so worried about the past, what happened in the past. We're worried about the future. Worry about right now. Enjoy the right now. Enjoy the journey of it all. Because I'm telling you right now, if you do not enjoy the journey right now, even if you accomplish your goal, you're not gonna feel that full fulfillment, because all you did was just gonna bulldoze time, and then you'll look back and go, wow, I really didn't enjoy myself. I was just so focused on this one goal. I never lived life.
right.
And I think that is not the way to go. You should embrace the journey of it. You look at a child, right? When they're building the Legos, the most fun they're having is when they're actually doing it, building the Legos. They may have fun after they build it and to show their parents of what they build. But when they're having the most enjoyment is in the journey of building the Legos. And I think that's how we should be. We should enjoy right now building our Legos wherever that's at, but enjoy us right this moment. And then you said another one, and would be give yourself grace. I mean, life is hard. Things are hard, and we're so hard on ourselves all the time. Give ourselves grace to say, you know what? Today, I just don't have it in me. I'm just gonna just do nothing, and not feel guilty about it, because your mind sometimes just needs to shut it down. Now, if you're doing it every single day, that's a different topic. But if you are just burnt out, give yourself grace to say, you know what? Enough's enough today. I'm not doing it.
Those are very valid points and huge, which too many people don't do that. They don't, and it's funny you should say that, because my previous interview also was talking about giving yourself grace. Exact same terminology. So it's just funny that two in a row, but it's very true, because you can make mistakes. Things don't always go right, but give yourself grace to learn from the things that aren't going the way you want them to go. So that is huge. Now, if our listeners wanted to reach out to you, how would they find you?
There's a couple ways. Thanks for asking the question. So one is they can go through my website, a call to action.coach. And on this website, a call to action.coach, I have a free ebook that they can download. And
Awesome.
it's basically how I was able to rewrite my story, and how the other individual reading it can rewrite their story, and how to maximize your day. And that's completely free on my website, ebook. That's fine. And then you can book an appointment on my website. And if you're old school, I have my cell phone on my website. So if you want to book it old school and just want to call me and say, hey, let's book an appointment, I'm good with that too. So however you want to work it. So that's one way. And two is I developed a Facebook group called Rewrite Your Story. And it's a group of people from all over the world. And we give everybody a space to allow people to share their stories. And there's no judgment. We're only there to support. We have meetup groups once a month where we do the same thing live in a virtual setting, where we allow people a space to share what's been going on in their lives. And we have a great group of people that we just support. We celebrate victories. We lift each other up if we're down. It's a great, great group. And that's Rewrite Your Story Facebook group. So everybody's more than welcome to join that as well.
I would recommend joining it. I am part of the group. I'm not that active in the group, but I am part of the group, and seeing other stories definitely becomes inspirational, and seeing how other people have shifted their lives and rewritten their stories makes me realize how over the years I've rewritten mine. Even if I don't always share it, but I know I have rewritten mine, and seeing everybody else's stories, I would definitely recommend to anybody, join the group, be part of it. It is a great group of people. So
yeah, and you're rewriting your story right this moment. You're taking some great actions right now. So that's awesome.
I am shifting the focus of the podcast a little bit, keeping self-care as the primary factor, but shifting the focus a bit to deal with the chronic illness and lifelong conditions. Because to me, it needs to get out there. Too many people don't understand what goes into being in a family with somebody with a chronic or lifelong condition.
Yeah.
And
So
everybody
true.
has them. Even the quote unquote normal issues of childhood, they're still, majority of them are still lifelong conditions. People just don't think of it that way.
You're absolutely right. There's no such thing as normal, I think.
Like I
Everybody's
said,
unique and
I put
different.
it in quotes for that reason. I mean, we've normalized, unfortunately, excuse me, we've normalized food allergies, we've normalized asthma, we've normalized ADHD, but they're still not normal, even though they've been normalized in today's environment. So thank you again for sharing your story. I know it's going to be inspirational to so many people, and hopefully more people will join your Rewrite Your Story Facebook group, and we can hear their stories and figure out how they're helping to rewrite them. So thank you again, Paul. I am so happy that you were able to join me. I've enjoyed learning more about your story in a different way than we had in the past.
Well, I enjoyed our conversation, Allison. You made me feel comfortable throughout the podcast, so I thank you for that, and look forward to your journey with this podcast because you're doing some great things.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of The Oxygen Mask Effect. I hope you had some takeaways that you will incorporate into your daily life. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review, subscribe so you won't miss any additional episodes, and share the link with friends who might appreciate it. If the show resonated with you, please join me in the Oxygen Mask Effect community on Facebook at facebook.com/The Oxygen Mask Effect. I look forward to speaking with you soon.